What if the worst day of your life dropped you into someone else's century? Not a nightmare, a one-way trip to 1976, with nothing but your instincts and a secret the universe accidentally handed you. His name is Xiao Tian Leong, former competitive shooter, gold medalist, ordinary modern man. One morning he closed his eyes in a house with concrete walls and electricity. The next morning he opened them to sunlight stabbing through a hole in the roof. A straw bed that felt like bricks. A blanket that was 90% patches and 100% stink. Dirt walls, campfire smell, an oil lamp on a wobbly table, a raincoat on a nail, and a propaganda poster. That was the entire room. 0 stars, no checkout button, no way back. His brain ran the checklist twice before accepting what his eyes were telling him. He had time traveled, not by machine, not by choice, not with a map. Just yanked out of the present and dropped into the northeast Chinese countryside like a stone. Into a frozen lake. The date, confirmed by 2 strangers who burst in when he knocked a chunk of wood off the window frame. September 22, 1976. One was Li Hongbing, the village production team leader, built like a boulder and twice as solid. The other was Lu the accountant, thin, old-school glasses. The kind of man who notices everything and says little. They looked at his skin, too smooth, too pale for a farmer, and assumed he was a sent-down city youth who had tried to drown himself in the river. Honestly, after one look at that blanket, Xiao Tian Leong almost understood the logic. He could not exactly explain the truth, so he reached for the oldest trick in the book. Fake amnesia, dramatic head grab, convincing wince. The full performance, and they bought every second of it. While he lay there in his debut role as a tragic amnesiac city youth, the 2 men stepped next door to discuss his fate. Lu the accountant floated a proposal so cold it made the room feel smaller. Marry this lost kid off to a sickly girl as a good luck charm for someone else's sick son. Li Hongbing slammed the table and shut that down immediately. And Xiao Tian Leong mentally awarded the man a gold star. Meanwhile, something moved near the wall of his room, gray, small, fast. Shooter instincts fired before conscious thought could intervene. One flick of the wrist. One piece of brick. One clean headshot. He walked over expecting a mouse and found a tiny rabbit dead, still holding a leaf in its mouth. He felt bad for about 2 seconds. Then his mind cracked open. A transparent bubble materialized somewhere behind his eyes, a pocket of space. Soft-edged and impossible, floating inside his own skull. Inside it, rabbits stacked in a fuzzy pyramid, exactly 100 of them. He had killed one and received 100. 100 times multiplier, unlocked, active, sitting in his brain like a loaded weapon. Xiao Tian Leong stood over a dead rabbit in 1976 and understood, with absolute clarity, that this broken timeline had just handed him a cheat code. His mind immediately ran the math. Does it work on fish, on crops, on birds, on anything he could touch and take? The space itself was about 10 cubic meters. Not a warehouse, but a magical pocket dimension inside his own head. And he was not filing any complaints. His only concern was temperature. 100 dead rabbits in a warm brain bubble had a shelf life problem. When Li Hongbing and the accountant rushed back in at the noise, he pointed at the floor and said, "Rabbit came in. Rabbit is now dead." The accountant's eyes lit up. Fresh meat was a luxury out here, and a dead rabbit was practically a celebration. Li Hongbing did forensics instead, looked at the wound, looked at the brick chip, looked at this boy with new eyes. "You killed it in one shot, with that?" Xiao Tian Leong shrugged. He told them he did not eat rabbit, a complete lie, but a strategic one, and watched the goodwill flow in as the 2 men left with the animal, and promised him a meal in return. Li Hongbing's son arrived a little later carrying a bowl of cornflour buns and pickled vegetable strips. His name was Yuan Xiao, maybe 14, dark from sun and farm work. Clothes more patches than fabric, but eyes sharp and alive with something that had not been beaten out of him yet. The buns tasted like gravel mixed with regret, the pickles like someone's salty tears. But the kid stared at that food like it was a 5-course dinner. He swallowed his own drool and said, "Dad told me this is yours. You traded the rabbit for it." Something cracked quietly in Xiao Tian Leong's chest. He ate the sad buns and did not think about pizza, or at least he tried. Yuan Xiao told him the 2 men had gone searching nearby villages for anyone who had reported a missing person matching his description. Sweet men, completely wasting their time, because Xiao Tian Leong did not exist in this timeline. No file, no record, no registration anywhere in 1976 China. And that cold realization hit him harder than the buns. In this era, an undocumented person was not just invisible. They were a spy suspect, a ghost who could get arrested before they even understood what they had stumbled into. His options were clear and not numerous. Going back to the city was impossible. Returning to the future was not on the table. and pretending to be from anywhere specific would unravel in minutes. The only real move was to stay, plant roots here in this poor little village, and wait for the reforms that he knew from history were coming in a few years. These people were kind. Li Hongbing had fished him out of a river and fed him, and that counted for more than Xiao Tian expected it to. He decided to explore the village with Yuan Shao as his guide, and this kid turned out to be a living encyclopedia of every person, every yard, every piece of drama within a 5-mile radius. They walked past golden wheat fields, heavy grain heads bowing in the breeze, and the young shooter from 2024 found himself thinking. It looked like a painting. A very hungry painting, but beautiful nonetheless. Then Yuan Shao mentioned there was a river nearby, and Xiao Yanlang's ears perked up. River meant fish meant protein, and his stomach was still lodging formal complaints about the corn buns. More importantly, he needed to test the multiplier again. 1 rabbit became 100. But did the rule hold for everything? They reached the river bank, and that was when he saw her. A girl washing clothes by the water, plain blue farmer clothes, hair half covering her face. White skin and delicate features that had absolutely no business existing in a backdrop of mud and manual labor. He looked for exactly 2 seconds, maybe 3, because what is more attractive than beauty when you have not eaten properly in an entire timeline? Protein. He turned back to scan the river for food, and then the girl screamed. She was on the ground, scrambling backward, and a water snake was right in front of her, tongue flicking, ready to strike. A normal hero would think, I must save this girl. Xiao Yanlang's first thought was, can you eat water snake? And his second was, if I kill it, I get 100 of them. He became the most motivated snake fighter in the history of Northeast China. In approximately 1 second, the snake was too far for a rock. He needed range, so he snatched the slingshot from Yuan Shao's belt before the kid even processed what was happening. 1 pebble, 1 pull, 1 release, the snake dropped without a twitch. Yuan Shao's jaw went looking for the ground below his feet. The girl was pale as paper, still shaking, and up close she was even prettier than the first glance suggested. No makeup, completely natural. The kind of face that filters can only imitate. Her name was Lin Yuing, and she thanked him quietly while her neck turned red and her eyes stayed down. He said no problem and accidentally stared at her for slightly too long, but not for the reason she probably assumed. He was checking his brain bubble, and sure enough, right next to the rabbit pyramid, a fresh pile of water snakes had appeared, exactly 100, slithery and stacked and very much waiting. The cheat code worked on everything. He wanted to throw his head back and howl, but he kept his composure, mostly. He picked up the dead snake and asked Yuan Shao the most important question of the afternoon. Can you eat this thing? The kid swallowed so loudly, it was audible from 3 feet away, and said yes, absolutely yes. Li Hongbing was calling from across the field. Lin Yuing hurried off with her laundry, and Xiao Yanlang walked back toward the village with the dead snake, a stunned apprentice, and a brain bubble expanding by the day. Yuan Shao draped that snake around his neck like a scaly fashion statement, and marched straight to his father. Li Hongbing looked at the snake, looked at the wound, looked at the stranger who kept doing impossible things with small objects. Then he pulled Xiao Yanlang aside and told him, quietly but firmly, to stay away from that girl by the river. No explanation, just the classic trust me warning delivered with a weight that suggested the village had opinions about Lin Yuing that ran deep and ran ugly. But before that thread could unravel, there was a more immediate problem, the identity situation. They went inside and met Li Hongbing's wife, Wang Suhua, short hair, blue traditional jacket. Immediately, and completely motherly, she called him Xiao Xiao and told him to treat the house as his own. And something warm moved through his chest before his stomach reminded him it was still empty. He handed her the snake and asked if she could cook it, and Yuan Shao presented it like an Olympic trophy, making sure his mother knew it was his slingshot that sealed the deal. The boy had been trying to justify keeping that slingshot for months, and Xiao Yanlang had just become his best legal argument. Li Hongbing sat him down with the news he had already expected. No missing person report, no matching description, nothing from any commune or camp within range. Because of course there wasn't. Xiao Yanlang made his move, calm and direct. If you cannot find where I came from, can I just stay here? Li Hongbing went through about 17 emotions in seconds, and the one that landed and held was something close to happiness. The man who could kill things with rocks was willing to stay in their poor, struggling village, and that meant something enormous to him. He was honest first, 20 cents per full workday, one of the poorer teams in the region. Not much comfort and less money. Xiao Yanlang told him, Uncle, I want to register my household right here, and watched the man's face turn red with joy. That evening, Wang Suhua brought out the water snake soup, and the smell alone was a religious experience. Rich, savory, warm broth from an animal he had killed with a borrowed slingshot and a kid's stone, properly cooked by a woman who could have worked in any kitchen across any decade. Yuan Shao ate with both hands gripping the bowl, face buried in the broth, inhaling snake soup at speeds that violated physics and dignity simultaneously. His parents were mortified. The boy was unstoppable, and Xiao Tianleong took notes on his technique with genuine respect. By sunset, the paperwork was done. Xiao Tianleong, officially registered resident of Shungan Village, documented human being in a timeline he did not belong to. For months of government rations, 45 jin of rice per month, a little oil, and a meat coupon because the actual pork was out of stock. A coupon for meat. In 1976, this was what life had come to, but with 100 times multiplier sitting behind his eyes. 20 cents a day and a meat coupon were the least of his concerns. Li Hongbing set him up in the old youth housing, a place that had once housed sent-down kids before they all escaped back to the cities. Translation: he got the entire building to himself. Private quarters in a decade when most families slept 8 to a bed. The furniture looked like it had been assembled by people who had never seen furniture before. But it was free real estate, and he was not complaining about free. Yuan Shao showed up the next morning with brooms, dustpans, rags, and an enamel basin, sent by his father, ready to clean. This 14-year-old had better domestic skills than most adults Xiao Tianleong had known in the future, and together they turned the haunted farmhouse into something almost livable. Then he dangled the carrot. Want to eat snake meat again tomorrow? The kid short-circuited, rebooted, and lit up like every celebration he had ever seen rolled into one. The water snakes are rare, Yuan Shao said carefully. Today was just lucky. Xiao Tianleong glanced at his mental inventory. 80 snakes still waiting patiently. Kid, he thought, you have absolutely no idea. He steered the conversation toward Lin Yuing and got the full story. And it was worse than he expected. The village called her Broomstar a jinx, a bad luck magnet. A girl who had been blamed since birth for her older brother's mysterious illness. Rural 1976 logic had looked at a sick brother, looked at the baby sister born around the same time, and reached its devastating conclusion without a single hesitation. When the girl herself developed the same symptoms years later, instead of anyone thinking, maybe this is genetic, the village doubled down. Her own parents stripped away her real name, Lin Yuing, and replaced it with the word for curse. Yuan Shao was furious about it. Why doesn't anyone ask why the brother gave it to her? If they both have the same parents? This 14-year-old boy had more common sense than every adult in the village combined, and Xiao Tianleong gave him a silent standing ovation. His own theory was simpler and sadder. Hereditary condition. Identical symptoms in siblings at similar ages. Almost certainly genetic and almost certainly beyond what 1976 medicine could touch. Poor girl, sick and emotionally discarded by the people who were supposed to protect her, carrying a name that was designed to make her feel like a disaster. He filed the ache away and shifted the conversation toward something useful. He asked Yuan Shao, casually, whether there were any hunters in the village, and specifically whether anyone had a gun. Because Xiao Tianleong was a professional marksman stuck in a legal hunting era with no firearms, and the math on that situation was unbearable. Yuan Shao announced there was a hunter king in the village, with the gravity of someone introducing a final boss. The man's name was Wang Qingshan, and the legendary title turned out to be a pun, because his name contained a sound that meant king, and so people called him Hunter King the way you might call a baker the breadmaster. The disappointment was immediate and significant, but the kid mentioned his uncle had a 16-gauge shotgun, and the conversation took a sharp and promising turn. The uncle loved drinking, good liquor, not the cheap bulk stuff, and the right bottle might unlock a borrowing arrangement. The right bottle required black market trading, the black market required goods to trade. And Xiao Tianleong was sitting on 90 rabbits and 70 snakes in his invisible inventory. This plan could actually work. Li Hongbing brought bedding and supplies that evening, enamel cup, toothbrush, matches, towel, everything a person needed to start a life from nothing. Xiao Tianleong's emotional debt to this family was piling up faster than rabbits in his brain. Next morning he woke up, exercised, and made snake soup with 2 animals pulled from his inventory, clean, boneless, dropped into water with nothing but fire because he had no seasoning whatsoever. Right on schedule. Yuan Shao's foghorn voice blasted through the courtyard and the boy found the kitchen. In 3 seconds flat, nose operating like a precision instrument. He tried to refuse breakfast. I'll come back later. We can go find snakes together. Then froze. Looked at the pot, looked at Xiao Tianleong. Wait, you already caught more snakes. What happened next altered the structure of their relationship permanently. Yuan Shao walked up, dropped smoothly to his knees, and said, "Master, please accept your disciple." Xiao Tian Leong stared at this boy on the floor of his kitchen and genuinely did not know what to do with him. He tried to refuse. "Get up. What are you doing? I am in my 20s. But the kid's knees were planted like fence posts, and he was not moving for anything. "Fine, fine, unofficial disciple, accepted. Now get up. Sit down, drink your soup, and tell me everything about the black market." Yuan Shao jumped up like a spring and said, "Yes, master," with the enthusiasm of a golden retriever who had just learned its favorite trick. One day in this village, and Xiao Tian Leong had a home, rations, a cheat code, and an apprentice. This timeline did not know what was coming. The black market turned out to be less terrifying than the name suggested. Not a shadowy criminal operation, but an unofficial farmer's market that the government had cracked down on years ago, and now mostly pretended not to see. Yuan Shao guided him through back alleys to a middle-aged man with a large mole on his face, and eyebrows that curved like they were performing yoga, Song Jinzi, the market's unofficial mayor. "Buying or selling?" the man asked with a merchant smile. "Both," said Xiao Tian Leong, and watched Song Jinzi's eyebrows rise another centimeter. He dropped the basket, pulled back the grass covering, and revealed a tower of processed rabbit and snake meat. Song Jinzi's eyes did math, then did it again, then quietly accepted that this stranger had walked in with more product than most hunters produced in a month. He pulled out 2 bottles of Zhaoang special brew and threw in 15 jin of grain tickets as change. Yuan Shao confirmed through eye contact, "Fair deal, solid reputation, no tricks on a first transaction." They shook on it. Xiao Tian Leong mentally flagged the mole-faced merchant for future business, and the pair walked home with premium liquor and a workable plan for borrowing the uncle's shotgun. But walking past a reed marsh on the way back, something rustled. Hunter instincts activated. He signaled Yuan Shao to freeze, crept forward through the reeds, and found Lin Yuing. She was lying in the grass, midday sun filtering through the reeds, holding 2 tiny quail eggs in her fingertips and smiling softly to herself. Before his brain could generate an appropriate social response to accidentally stalking a beautiful girl through a marsh, 3 birds exploded from the reeds in a panic. Pinetail snipes, airborne and gone. His body moved before the awkward moment could finish forming. Left hand steady, right hand loaded. First stone, headshot. Bird 1 down, reload, adjust. Second stone, bird 2 down, predict the arc. Third stone, wing joint, bird 3 down. 3 shots, 3 kills, all airborne with a borrowed slingshot. From outside the reeds, Yuan Shao lost his mind completely. Lin Yuing stared at him with wide eyes, the relief and embarrassment competing on her very red face. She had recognized the snake-killing stranger, and she felt terrible for the half-second she had thought he was sneaking up on her. And he was just standing there thinking, thank every bird in this marsh for flying out when they did, because he had zero explanation prepared for crouching in the bushes near a girl lying in the grass. Yuan Shao crashed into the reeds like a small elephant, spotted Lin Yuing, and immediately critiqued the mud on her clothes with the social grace of a 14-year-old boy. She bit her lip and swallowed whatever she wanted to say back. As she was leaving, she stopped beside him, head down, neck going red, and opened her pale hand. 2 tiny quail eggs. "Xiao age, thank you for saving me at the river. Please accept these." Her voice was barely above a whisper, and that was when it hit him. She had spent her morning lying in this marsh searching for bird eggs, because 2 quail eggs were the most valuable thing she owned, and she wanted to say thank you with something real. This girl with no money, no allowance, no family warmth had given him everything she had found. He was not crying. It was the reed pollen. He told her he loved quail eggs, watched a tiny flash of happiness cross her face, and then she mumbled about needing to cook dinner and vanished into the reeds like a startled deer. He tucked the eggs into his shirt, slipped them into his brain bubble, and 200 quail eggs appeared in his inventory. 2 eggs had just become 200, and the 3 pinetail snipes had added 300 of their own kind to the pile. This girl had accidentally given him the most profitable gift in either of his timelines. That evening, he was invited to dinner at Li Hongbing's house and walked in to find a table that almost made him emotional. Mixed flour buns, pinetail snipe braised with mushrooms, spicy stir-fried rabbit, snake soup, steamed eggplant, stewed beans, 3 meat dishes at one meal in 1976 rural China was a royal banquet. Lu the accountant nearly fell off his chair. "Hongbing, are you insane? 3 meat dishes. Did you rob a farm?" Li Hongbing puffed his pipe and smiled. "All of it came from Tian Leong," he said. And the accountant turned to look at the newcomer with completely new eyes. Yuan Shao ate with the focused intensity of a professional athlete, chopsticks blurring, rice disappearing at a rate that suggested he was competing against a clock only he could see. Over drinks, Xiao Tian Leong made his announcement. "Uncle, I think I could make a living as a hunter. Li Hongbing and Lu the accountant looked at each other, and behind their eyes, something that looked like fireworks went off. They played it cool, walked him through the risks, dangerous animals, no work points for farming, leaner grain rations at year-end, but the excitement was poorly contained. Xiao Tianleong said he was sure, and the next question sat in his chest for a moment before coming out. Uncle, once I have a hunter's license, can I apply for a gun? Sunday morning, Yuan Shao appeared at dawn to exercise, committed to the master-disciple arrangement with a loyalty that was almost alarming. 2 days later, Li Hongbing walked Xiao Tianleong to the forestry bureau and came back with a hunter's license. Official paper, stamped and real, saying Xiao Tianleong had the right to hunt. He asked about a gun assignment immediately. Sorry, nothing in stock right now. We'll prioritize you when we do. When, in government language, meant somewhere between tomorrow and the end of recorded time. Plan B it was, borrow the uncle's shotgun. And that morning, with Yuan Shao on the back of the village's single bicycle borrowed from Lu the accountant's family, they rode to Frozen Creek lumber camp. Wang Yushin, the uncle, opened his gate, sniffed the sealed basket of Zhaoang's special brew through the cloth from 6 feet away, and his whole face transformed. Burn scar on one cheek, yellow teeth, booming voice. 30 years of cooking skill. This man was a walking contraindication to all expectations. When Xiao Tianleong presented the full gift basket to bottles of premium liquor, processed game meat, malted milk powder, came peaches, Wang Yushin shook his head and said no. Too much. I cannot accept this. His eyes said something completely different. His eyes said, please force me. Xiao Tianleong cut through the politeness. Chef Wang, let's not pretend. I am here to borrow your gun. The man's face went flat, then complicated. Lending a gun was serious business, and his hesitation was real and reasonable. But the basket was sitting right there, and 2 bottles of his favorite liquor plus peaches plus malted milk powder were arguing against every reservation he had. Appetite won over logic by a landslide. For ground rules written with the gravity of a peace treaty, hunting only, never point at people. No lending it out, 2 months maximum, return it in good condition. Yuan Shao pointed out that was actually for rules when his uncle said 3. He received a death glare that could have stunned wildlife. Xiao Tianleong signed before anyone could change their mind. A 16-gauge converted shotgun, modified barrel firing 7.62mm rounds, single shot and manual reload, and Wang Yushin lifted it off the wall and placed it in his hands, like passing a firstborn child. Inside, Xiao Tianleong's soul was doing backflips. Wang Yushin's 3 sons had been circling the kitchen doorway since the food smell hit. Damien the shy eldest, Dasha the dramatic protector, Dayton the fearless 7-year-old CEO who squared up to strangers with both hands on his hips and zero hesitation. When the iron pot stew came out, pinetail snipe and rabbit braised with potatoes, glass noodles, and wild mushrooms, Xiao Tianleong took one bite and understood that Wang Yushin's cooking was in a different dimension entirely. He understood this from exactly the 3 bites he managed before for starving boys, demolished everything else in the pot and left him holding a corn cake and staring at a graveyard of clean bones. Those boys had eaten like satisfied lions and were sprawled across the heated platform, like they had survived a war, which in terms of hunger was basically accurate. Mid-regret, Wang Yushin dropped a piece of intelligence. The lumber camp buys meat from private sellers, above market price, no ration tickets needed for privately sourced game. Xiao Tianleong's entire attention snapped into focus. A state enterprise buying directly from hunters at premium prices, no tickets, no middle market complications. That was a gold mine with a name and an address. Chef Wang, could you introduce me? Thud, face down on table, unconscious, snoring, gone. The man had passed out mid-sentence and taken the most important business opportunity of Xiao Tianleong's 1976 career with him into sleep. Fine, he knew the opportunity existed. Next time, he would monitor the alcohol intake personally. Next morning, Xiao Tianleong went into the mountains for the first time with a borrowed gun. 50 extra bullets that Wang Yushin had generously included while drunk, and 1 very excited apprentice. Yuan Shao had been nursing a grudge against wild boars for a year. The animals came down from the mountains every harvest season and destroyed the village crops, and his feelings about them were exactly as complicated as you would expect from a boy who hated them and also wanted desperately to eat them. They searched Mountain Ridge for hours and found nothing. No boar, no tracks, not even a footprint. Then Xiao Tianleong spotted an old poplar tree with a yellowish oily streak and bristle hairs stuck in the bark. A rub mark, recent from a male boar that had been here and left, finding it would take some luck. But walking away without looking was not the Xiao Tianleong way. Yuan Shao was already scanning the bushes behind him like the boar was hiding back there waiting. They kept moving, corn cakes in hand, sun overhead, the forest quiet and keeping its secrets. Then Yuan Shao said he urgently needed to use the bathroom and sprinted to a crooked poplar, next to a bushy dip in the ground. What happened next was the kind of event that gets told around fires for decades. Yuan Shao's relief rained down directly onto the face of a full-grown wild boar that had been napping peacefully in that ditch for God knows how long. The boy looked down. Black marble eyes looked up. For one eternal second, they stared at each other, a skinny teenager with his pants undone and a 400-pound animal with a freshly ruined nap. Some mistakes in life can be apologized for. Urinating on a wild boar's face is not one of them. Yuan Shao's legs found a gear that had never been used before, and he launched toward his master at a speed that defied everything his frame suggested was possible. Behind him, the forest cracked and split as something enormous and furious hauled itself upright. The sound of 300 pounds of insulted pork getting to its feet was not subtle. Xiao Tian Leong heard the boy screaming, heard the crash, grabbed the gun, and sprinted. He needed a downward angle to punch through the boar's shoulder blade into the heart. Ground-level shots would bounce off the skull or the thick mud-caked shoulders, like pebbles off concrete. He spotted a rock ledge 3 meters high and was on top of it into seconds. Below him, Yuan Shao was running with everything he had, gap closing. The boar grinding its tusks with a sound like a machine that had decided to be angry forever. The kid actually found another gear and pulled ahead slightly, which was genuinely impressive for someone running from certain death in the wrong pants situation. Then his foot slipped, and he went face first toward the dirt. The boar was right there. Bang, first shot, eject, reload, aim, bang, second shot, eject, reload, aim, bang, third shot. 3 rounds from a single-shot manual reload shotgun fired so fast. They sounded like semi-automatic fire, each one a hit. The muscle memory of 10,000 hours of competitive shooting taking over where thinking would have been to slow. Silence. The boar went still 5 meters from where Yuan Shao lay face down in the dirt, composing what was probably going to be a very dramatic eulogy. You going to lie there all day? The boy scrambled up, turned around, saw the enormous dead animal, then grabbed the machete from Xiao Tian Leong's belt and marched directly toward it. He poked it to confirm death, and then proceeded to punch and kick the carcass while screaming at it, absolutely wailing on this dead pig like it had borrowed money and never paid it back. Most people would need therapy after being chased by a wild boar. Yuan Shao needed revenge, and he took it. When the boy calmed down enough to speak, he asked how 3 shots had come from a single shotgun. Want me to teach you? Yes, teach me. Cool, go butcher that pig first. He ran off with the enthusiasm of someone who had just been promised something wonderful, and Xiao Tian Leong sat down on a rock to deal with what was happening inside his skull. 100 wild boars had just appeared in his brain bubble. 100 wild boars, each weighing hundreds of pounds, in a space that had previously held 10 cubic meters. His head felt like someone was slowly tightening a vice around it from the inside. He gritted his teeth and screamed internally at the space to expand, and it listened. 10 cubic meters became 20, then 50. Then 100, the bubbles stretching outward like a warehouse being built at impossible speed. But the price was everything inside it. All the rabbits, all the snakes, all the pinetail snipes, and 90 of the 100 boars, consumed as fuel to power the expansion. He went from a fully stocked inventory to 10 wild boars and a massive empty warehouse in his skull. He wanted to cry and laugh at the same time, which is a combination that does not have a clean emotional name. The space was 10 times larger now, and his control over it had sharpened dramatically, faster processing. More animals handled at once, the upgrade going beyond just size. 10 wild boars still remained, each one weighing hundreds of pounds. Thousands of pounds of pork sitting in a pocket dimension behind his eyes. And a dead one right in front of him that Yuan Shao was attempting to butcher with a rusty machete. And 0 success. Master, this thing is made of concrete, I cannot cut it. This pig weighed at least 300 jin, to skinny men with a dull blade. We're not hauling this down a mountain. They needed backup, and backup needed an incentive. Whoever carries gets a share. That was mountain law, and it was about to get some very motivated volunteers. They went down to recruit, returned with Li Hongbing, Lu the accountant, and his teenage son Lu Qingyin, all moving at the speed of people who had been promised pork. And when they arrived at the kill site, someone was already there. A tall man was calmly butchering Xiao Tian Leong's wild boar with the precision of a surgeon. Pig head separated, trotters removed, tusks extracted, hide peeled, all done beautifully. Hunter King Wang Qingshan, the man whose entire legend was built on a kill nobody had ever witnessed, was dissecting another hunter's boar like he owned it. Li Hongbing confronted him. Wang Qingshan held up the boar's heart and pointed at the bullet holes. Whoever killed this was incredibly skilled, but the blood-draining job was sloppy, and without his intervention the meat would have spoiled. Xiao Tian Leong checked his pride, checked the facts, and acknowledged them. The man was right. Comrade Xingshan, thank you, take a share. The division went smoothly, 2 shares for the shooter. 1 for Yuan Xiao, who had contributed by serving as bait, 1 for the carrying crew, 1 for Wang Qingshan. But Wang Qingshan looked at him with something new in his eyes and said, I don't want the meat. I want something else. I want to hunt a bear. I want you as my partner. Li Hongbing and Lu the accountant shouted simultaneously, bear? An actual bear, several hundred pounds, claws that tear through trees. The kind of animal that eats people? Wang Qingshan ignored the panic and stared straight at Xiao Tian Leong. 3 shots, all hitting the same spot on a charging boar. With a single-shot modified shotgun, you're the best marksman I've ever seen. Then he noticed the gun on Xiao Tian Leong's back and his voice cracked. You did this with a 16-gauge converted shotgun, not even a Type 56 semi-auto? What I did, Xiao Tian Leong thought, is the equivalent of winning a car race on a bicycle. But he kept that to himself. Wang Qingshan laid out the pros: hunting dogs, forest knowledge, experience, and the location of an actual bear. The con: he had just met this man, and in deep forest. The most dangerous thing standing next to you is not always the animal. Comrade Xingshan, I need some time to think about it. The village descended on the returning hunters like a parade had arrived. Word of the boar spread through Shungan at wildfire speed, and every person who wasn't pinned down by obligation came running. But the crowd saw Wang Qingshan first and began cheering for him, crediting the kill, inflating the legend. That was when Qin Ban, one of the village's hunting brothers, spoke up. Look at who's carrying the pig head and trotters, he said, and the crowd's gaze shifted. The new guy, the city kid who had arrived 1 week ago with no memories and no belongings. He just got here, and he killed it. That's more impressive than Hunter King. Wang Qingshan hasn't bagged anything serious in years. The crowd swarmed Xiao Tian Leong, hands reaching, invitations flying, goodwill flowing from every direction. He made his move. Everyone gets meat. Mountain rules say share your kill with the village, and he was going to honor that, not from obligation, but from strategy. He needed these people, every one of them. The Annies and the old men and the kids and the skeptics. He gave every household at least 1 jin. Gave away nearly 100 jin, total including most of the pig head, and watched the village leave singing his name. In his brain bubble, 10 complete wild boars sat untouched. What he had given away was a rounding error. At the edge of the crowd, he caught a flash of pale skin, Lin Yuing, standing apart from the celebration the way she always stood apart from everything, watching. He waved at her, a friendly, casual, come get some free pork wave. She turned red and ran. He stood there with his hand in the air, covered in boar blood, having just offered free meat in 1976 and been sprinted away from. Whatever. What he did not know, what he would only learn later, was that while he stood there being mobbed by grateful villagers, Lin Yuan's parents were inside their house calmly discussing selling their daughter. Her father had a candidate, a 40-something divorced man with a grown son. A man who would pay bride price in exchange for their jinxed daughter, and fund their precious son's upcoming wedding. Her mother hesitated, suggested maybe the new youth was an option instead. Her father snorted, a man who can hunt wild boar isn't going to look at your daughter. Lin Yuan was standing outside the door, hearing every word, shaking. None of this reached Xiao Tian Leong that night. He was at Li Hongbing's house, eating braised boar skin dipped in special soy sauce and having what he could only describe as a genuinely wonderful time. Then the real conversation started. Wang Qingshan, bear hunting, can I trust him? Li Hongbing put down his chopsticks and got serious. His character is fine, good reputation, but 5 years ago, a bear killed his wife right in front of him. After that, something broke inside the man. His hands shake when he holds a gun now. He has not successfully hunted anything big in 5 years, and that is why nobody has ever seen proof of his old kills. If you go into bear territory with a man whose nerve is shattered, you are the one carrying the risk. Xiao Tian Leong filed that under confirmed PTSD, revenge obsession. Not a hunting partner, but a liability dressed in skill. Throughout this entire conversation about life and death, Yuan Xiao had not looked up from his plate once. Both hands still moving, pork in the left, pork in the right, alternating with mechanical precision, completely committed to his craft. Next morning, Xiao Tian Leong gave Yuan Xiao his first solo mission, scout every nearby village. For hunting dogs on sale, names, breeds, conditions, prices. The boy puffed his chest up like a general receiving battlefield orders and was gone, sprinting. An intelligence agent powered entirely by the promise of future snacks. With the apprentice deployed, Xiao Tian changed clothes and prepared for the black market. 3 wild boars had been processed overnight inside his brain bubble, skinned, gutted, sectioned, all done mentally without touching a single knife. His control over the space smoother and faster after the upgrade. Song Jinzi was in his usual corner counting tickets like a goblin with an inventory. When Xiao Tian arrived with his basket, he dropped the cloth and let 3 wild boar heads stare up at the merchant with dead black eyes. Song Jinzi jumped backward, caught himself, coughed, and tried to look professional, failed completely, mole practically vibrating. "These heads are just the appetizer," Xiao Tian told him. "I have 3 entire boars to move." The man's composure collapsed entirely. He had heard about the boar crisis at the Shangling commune, had heard about hunting gangs going in to deal with it, and 3 boars in 1 delivery. Fit perfectly with a gang that knew what it was doing. "Your hunting gang must have had quite a haul up there," Song Jinzi said, and Xiao Tian let him believe every word. A mysterious hunter from a dangerous gang. That story was infinitely better. Than amnesiac time traveler with a magic brain pocket. He leaned into it with 1 raised eyebrow and said nothing. Song Jinzi's entire posture shifted from business partner to careful respect, and then Xiao Tian laid out his shopping list. A gun, 7.62mm ammunition, 100 rounds, the rest in cash and tickets. And if you can find hunting dogs, count those toward payment. The merchant's brain was already building the narrative. This gang lost dogs fighting the boars, now resupplying everything, and he could be their permanent provider if he came through. "Little brother, I will find those dogs, leave it to me." Song Jinzi had just promoted himself to personal procurement officer for an imaginary hunting gang, and the beauty of it was that he was genuinely motivated. The transaction closed 3 days later at Frozen Creek, 500 jin of processed meat, delivered by moonlight, Song Jinzi arriving with 2 silent henchmen and ox carts, keeping the ammunition until all the meat was loaded because he genuinely believed he was dealing with people who would rob him. 300 yuan cash, 200 assorted tickets, and 100 rounds of 7.62mm ammunition. The package landed in Xiao Tian's hands and he stood in a dark forest thinking. When he woke up 2 weeks ago, he had owned nothing but the clothes he was wearing. Now he had guns, ammo, money, tickets, a meat-selling empire with 2 channels, and a black market dealer who was afraid of him. Not bad. Morning came with a surprise. He pushed the door open in training clothes. 8-pack on full display from his usual shirtless workout. And it was not Yuan Shao standing in his courtyard holding a broom. Lin Yuan stood there, broom in hand, and her eyes landed on his ABS like a deer hitting headlights. Her face went from porcelain white to tomato red in approximately 0.3 seconds. He slammed the door so fast he nearly broke it. Yuan Shao's doing 100%. That scheming little matchmaker had sent this girl to his house without a single word of warning. He dressed, came back out, began his exercises like nothing had happened. Watched Lin Yuan move to a different corner of the courtyard and continue sweeping with a face that had not fully returned to normal color. When Yuan Shao strolled and grinning like sunshine a few minutes later, Xiao Tian smiled back very sweetly and told him to show his horse stance. "Good form, hold it until I say stop." Then he went to the kitchen. Lin Yuan appeared behind him like a ghost, grabbed a scalding hot bowl barehanded without flinching, added soy sauce, and served breakfast, steamed eggs, rice porridge, manna bread, all perfect. Iron hands, quiet competence, and she had been here since before he woke up. She tried to leave after serving. He grabbed her hand to stop her, realized immediately what he had done, released it just as fast, and stood there for a moment with the social grace of someone who had never processed an emotion in either timeline. Smooth, Qianlang. Very smooth. He made her sit and eat. She wanted only plain porridge. He put eggs and bread in front of her and did not move them. Because this girl was dangerously thin, probably barely eating at home. And the steamed eggs she had cooked were the best thing he had tasted in weeks. Outside in the courtyard, Yuan Shao's legs were beginning to tremble in a way that suggested they were filing a formal grievance. He eventually called the boy in, watched him eat with the urgency of someone who had survived an ordeal, and delivered the lecture on the walk to the mountains. "Never leave her alone at my place. Again, I am a single man, she is a young woman, people in this village talk." The color drained from Yuan Shao's face. He had not considered that angle at all. Good intentions, catastrophic execution, classic. They shifted to something more useful. The Shangling commune bounty had been increased. 50 jin of grain per boar killed, 20 bullets per kill. And if you reach 10 boars, a bicycle. 15 boars added a television ticket on top of everything. A bicycle and a television ticket to pieces of the legendary 3 rounds and a sound. The ultimate status symbols of 1976. Xiao Tian Leong's brain immediately started running the math, then immediately killed the obvious shortcut. He had 7 clone boars in inventory, identical down to every bristle, and presenting 7 carbon copy pigs to experienced hunters in a commune crawling with experts would end one way. Secret exposed, game over. The real play was going to Shang Lang legitimately join a team, let them track and flush the boars, land the killing blow himself every time. His multiplier triggered only on his kills, even working for free. Every dead boar meant 100 more. Plus, the commune reportedly let top hunters apply for a Type 56 semi-automatic rifle, and that weapon would transform everything. Their actual hunt that day produced 1 pheasant. 1. The forest around Shungan were nearly empty, hunted clean by everyone desperate enough to go looking. And the real game was deep in the mountains where no sane person went alone without dogs. Walking home at sunset with their sad single bird, he spotted Hunter King Wong Shan on the path ahead, clearly waiting for him. Wong Shan had found the bear's location. A 3-man team, Xiao Tian Leong as lead gunner, a backup axeman, and Wong Shan himself taking the most dangerous role, flushing the bear toward the guns with his wolf blue dog Stone. Zero share demanded. He wanted nothing from the kill except the hunt itself. Suspiciously generous because this was never about meat. I refuse. Wong Shan's jaw dropped. Nobody turns down free bear meat. Wangji, said Xiao Tian Leong quietly. Can you honestly tell me you'll stay calm when you're face to face with that bear? Silence. The man's hands started trembling, and that trembling said everything Li Hongbing had already told him. Wong Shan laughed bitterly and didn't argue. He offered dinner instead, and Xiao Tian Leong politely declined and headed home. At the youth quarters, smoke was already rising from the kitchen. Lin Yuing and Yuan Shao had let themselves in. She was boiling water while he plucked their lonely pheasant. When she looked up with those soft eyes and said welcome back, something in his chest did a flutter he aggressively chose not to examine. She cooked braised pheasant with mushrooms, stir-fried pheasant eggs with scallions, cold wild greens, first meal using the seasonings from the supply store. He tried it with his mouth already full and said delicious with the sincerity of someone who had stopped worrying about table manners several timelines ago. He saw her white-knuckled grip on her bowl relax. She had been terrified he would not like her cooking, and that broke a small piece of him. This girl measured her entire worth by whether she was useful to someone else. After dinner she said goodbye and walked home looking lighter than he had ever seen her. What he did not know was what was happening at the Lin household that same hour. The Chun father-son duo, the 40-something widower, and his son who had been lined up to buy Ling Yuing like livestock, had officially canceled the arrangement. The matchmaker showed up demanding the bride price back. Lin Yuing's mother cried. Her father returned the money like someone extracting a tooth without anesthetic, and the matchmaker grabbed the cash and practically ran. She would never touch this family's business again, and word spread everywhere, because word always spreads in small villages. And now no matchmaker in the region would risk their reputation on the Ling girl. Who did her parents blame? Their daughter, naturally. That cursed girl brought this on us again. Not the creepy man who ran away, not themselves for trying to sell their child, the girl. Meanwhile, the cursed girl was walking home smiling for the first time in years, completely unaware of what was waiting behind the door. This family made his blood boil. 2 days later came good news on the fronts. Land permit paperwork was approved, and in the unexplored red pine forest near the village, Yuan Shao spotted rub marks on a tree. Xiao Tian Leong pulled out some fur, sniffed it. Black bear, not a brown bear. Brown bears shrug off bullets the way walls shrug off water. Black bears were smaller, more cautious, more manageable, still terrifying, still fightable. They tracked for 20 minutes and found a battlefield. Smashed vegetation, blood on the ground. Multiple sets of prints from hunters and from something much heavier. Wong Shan had gone without him. They followed the blood trail at a run, and what they found was a nightmare dressed as a hunting site. Stone, the wolf blue dog, lay with his spine snapped. One teammate had his legs slashed open and couldn't move. The gunner, Lai Jiankong, had fired his homemade shotgun, and the barrel had exploded in his hands. And the bear had grabbed him and done something to his face that could not be undone. The bear had played them, faked injury, let them pursue, then turned and dismantled the team from behind. Smart, ruthless, a predator that understood strategy. Only Wong Shan was still standing, barely, massive claw wound across his chest pouring blood, holding an axe with shaking hands as the bear circled for a second pass. He muttered something about fighting to the death and charged, rolled sideways at the last second, and buried his axe in the bear's hind leg. Good hit, but the dodge cost him his balance, and a second on the ground against a bear meant death. That was when Xiao Tian Leong stepped in. 3 shots, his signature rapid-fire technique from a single shotgun. Each shell manually ejected and reloaded in the same continuous motion. That sounded almost like one unbroken burst. Wang Qingshan's axe had buckled the bear's hind leg and opened its chest forward. The universe gift trapped the angle, and Xiao Tian would have been insulting fate to miss it. 3 rounds punched into the bear's heart. A fountain of blood, one final horrible scream, and the beast crashed to earth like a building coming down. Wang Qingshan stared at the man who had refused his invitation 3 days ago and said, "Xiao, how are you here?" No time for that. Yuan Xiao was sent sprinting downhill for help, while Xiao Tian checked on the gunner who had no face left and was barely breathing. Down in the village, Li Hongbing had been running a meeting about Xiao Tian's land permit at that exact moment. Most villagers had voted yes immediately, but one man named Wang Dongjun had started complaining about giving an outsider good land. Li Hongbing shut it down. "He's registered here, he is one of us. Stop calling him outsider." Lu the accountant piled on. "Who didn't eat free boar meat from him?" Then Yuan Xiao exploded through the door screaming about injured hunters and a dead bear. Li Hongbing switched to emergency mode without a pause, organized a rescue party, called for a doctor, and then did something quietly brilliant. He noticed the holdouts who had refused to vote for the land permit, suddenly volunteering loudly for the rescue mission the moment free bear meat was mentioned. He smiled coldly and pointed out that the bear was killed by Xiao Jing, the outsider, and watched every reluctant hand shoot up in a race to claim they had always supported him. The land permit passed unanimously while Xiao Tian was on a mountain saving lives. Teamwork, even when the team does not know it is cooperating. Back on the mountain, the full village rescue party arrived with door panels serving as stretchers because Shungan did not own actual stretchers. Lai Jiankong in critical condition, Wang Qingshan and Zhao Dong loaded up and carried down. The paralyzed dog Stone going on the cart too. At the village entrance, Lin Yuing was waiting. The relief on her face when she saw them alive was a specific kind of relief. That takes up a lot of space in a room. "Can you cook bear paw?" he asked her. She had never seen a bear paw in her life, but he watched her mentally commit to learning anyway because that was simply who she was. Distribution time at the team office. He kept for things: the gallbladder, the nose, the kneecap bones, and all for paws. Everything else, hundreds of pounds of bear meat, went to the village, with helpers getting double portions. Smart incentive, simple rule, maximum goodwill. The gallbladder turned out to be a grass variety rather than the premium copper type, which made some villagers groan sympathetically. Xiao Tian did not mind. He had 100 more of them sitting in his brain bubble, each one worth several hundred yuan at market, enough to quietly become wealthy if he sold them slowly across different locations. A helpful village uncle named Lu Bingrun walked him through extraction and processing technique. How to tie the bile duct, wrap it in birch bark, coat it in clay, dry it properly. And for premium results, hollow a pine log and seal the gallbladder inside with beeswax and deer blood to develop the copper coin patterns that doubled its value. That night, Xiao Tian played secret agent, hollowed a pine log, sealed one gallbladder inside it with beeswax, snuck into Wang Qingshan's empty house at midnight, and stashed it on the ceiling beam. The man was at the hospital with his dog, door unlocked, no reason to look on the ceiling. Nobody would think to find a valuable medicine ingredient in an injured bachelor's abandoned cottage. He walked home in the dark, satisfied. Back at the supply cooperative the next day, he found Sister Zhang, the senior saleswoman with the Shanghai hair clip, who had responded beautifully to one carefully placed compliment, and one rabbit pelt presented as if she had commissioned it. He loaded up on essentials and hunting supplies, kept his basket light and ordinary looking so the other customers in line would not stare too hard, and smuggled everything important into his brain bubble before walking home. His net worth, counted one evening on his bed with bills spread like a carpet, was 536 yuan and 80 fen after 2 weeks in 1976. He had arrived with nothing but apps, amnesia, and a dead rabbit. He told Li Hongbing he wanted to build a brick house. Li Hongbing nearly choked on his pipe when Xiao Tian slammed 100 yuan on the table and his hunting knife beside it. The team leader accepted 2 packs of good cigarettes and agreed to handle everything. Construction started. Li Hongbing's cousin and 7 volunteers marked the foundation with stakes and rope, working not for wages but for meals. Because in 1976 you built a house by feeding your neighbors and they gave you their labor in exchange. The economy of poverty was brutal and efficient in equal measure. For the next 10 days, Xiao Tian stayed locked in his room doing something that looked like nothing. Inside his brain bubble, he spent each day mentally processing 10 black bears, skinning, extracting gallbladders, debiting, all through psychic manipulation with no physical effort required. 10 bears per day before his skull started complaining. 10 days of invisible productive silence. 100 gallbladders, processed and stored. The most profitable laziness in the history of either of his lifetimes. Wang Yuxing came through with 700 yuan for the wild boar sale. Xiao Tian Leong gave him 50 as his 5% cut. And the stingy uncle voluntarily bought someone else drinks. For what was reportedly the first time in living memory. Historic occasion. He spent the weeks feeding Lin Yuan snacks from the supply store, watching actual color return to her cheeks, noting that the girl who had once looked like paper was starting to look like a person who ate food. Yuan Xiao got whatever was left and accepted this arrangement with maximum resentment and minimum dignity. Then came the day Song Jinzi's puppy was ready for pickup. Half Liu Red, half Black Wolf Dog, the two most elite hunting breeds in northeast China combined into one. Newborn. Xiao Tian Leong paid 50 jin of pork without haggling, and followed Song Jinzi to Paddy Flower Village. 3 cabins at the foot of a mountain, surrounded by plants and silence and 0 neighbors, maximum hermit energy. Occupied by a 60-something man called Elder King, real name Linshan, nicknamed the Dog Maniac. At his peak he had owned 30 hunting dogs, then someone poisoned most of them. And now he lived alone with the survivors in a yard full of small dirt mounds, each one a grave, each one marked. He had buried every single one. Xiao Tian Leong's respect for the old man arrived before they had exchanged a single word. Elder King took one look at his face covering and went nuclear. The people who had poisoned his dogs had hidden their faces too. And his hatred of masked strangers was the purest form of reasonable grudge he had ever witnessed. The test was simple: walk toward the mother dog, Liu Red the size of a small cow. Pure muscle and targeting systems. If she approved, he took the puppy. If she didn't, they left. He walked toward her slowly, non-threateningly, professional approach, and she stood up. Ears forward, teeth showing, positioning her body between him and the puppy. One more step, and she was going to teach him a lesson about personal space. Then inspiration struck. His brain bubble contained the processed remains of 100 black bears, hundreds of gallons of apex predator blood, the concentrated essence of everything that sits at the top of the food chain. He opened the connection between his space and the world by the smallest possible margin. Just a whisper of bear blood scent leaking through. The effect was immediate and total. This massive, snarling, combat-trained killing machine went from "I will destroy you" to "I am so incredibly sorry, sir," in half a second. Her aggression collapsed, her eyes went soft, her tail tucked. She could not even look at him directly. He closed the connection, placed his hand on her head, and she accepted it without a tremor. Then she turned around, gently picked up her own puppy in her mouth, and placed it in his hands. A mother dog voluntarily surrendering her baby to a stranger. Because something in him read as above her in the food chain. Elder King's jaw was somewhere near the ground. Song Jinzi was hiding behind a door like a professional coward. Xiao Tian Leong stood there holding a tiny warm puppy, trying very hard to look cool and mysterious instead of the truth, which was, "Oh my God, it is so small and soft." He removed his mask in front of Elder King, showed his real face, gave his real name and village. The old man's entire attitude flipped. "Now that is a real man," he said, and apologized for manipulating the mother dog against him deliberately. Then he gave Xiao Tian Leong a wooden box, a deer bone whistle that would not freeze in winter, a collar made from warthog leather treated with bear oil to prevent throat lock attacks, and to cast iron dog spikes, professional hunting dog equipment from a master breeder, worth more than any price he could have named. This puppy's parents were my best hunters. Its potential exceeds them both. Do not waste it. "I won't," Xiao Tian Leong said, and meant it. Back at the youth quarters, he set the fur nugget on the floor. It wriggled around, sniffing everything, then crawled to his shoe and pressed against it, whimpering softly. His heart melted, then his brain kicked in. This dog needed a year to grow into a hunter, and he did not have a year. Then a hum from somewhere deep inside his skull. His brain bubble was vibrating, sending something toward him. An instruction, a method, a way to accelerate what should have taken months. Inside the space, 100 bears worth of meat began moving on its own, compressing, condensing, squeezing together until it formed a tiny red pill the size of his thumb. Feed this to a hunting dog. It grows up instantly. His cheat code had just manufactured dog steroids. The puppy smelled it before he could even think and licked it right out of his fingers. And that was when Xiao Tian Leong discovered he had lost control of the situation. Before it even started, the transformation was like a time-lapse on fast forward, palm size for ball, becoming a 6-month-old beast in seconds, ears standing straight up, fur shifting from black to rusty red, shoulder height reaching 60 centimeters. It went from fits in a shoe to could wear the shoe. He stared, the dog stared back with bright, intelligent eyes. then nuzzled his hand like absolutely nothing unusual had happened. He fed it more pills, watching each dose deepen the fur color, sharpen the eyes, add muscle over muscle until the rusty red deepened to blazing sunset, with a black stripe down the spine, and the neck armor fur that protects against throat attacks sprouted like a mane. 5 pills total, newborn to fully mature elite hunting dog in 20 minutes. The dog flopped at his feet immediately after and went tail wagging. Eyes gone soft baby mode. Terrifying warrior 1 second, adorable disaster the next. He named him Red King. The dog nodded. Actually nodded. The way a person would, and Xiao Tian Leong filed that detail under things. I am not going to explain to anyone ever. They went into the mountains that same afternoon to test what Red King could do. The second they entered the trees, the dog transformed from obedient pet into pure predator, scanning everything, running patterns that looked random but were not. When he found something and chased it down, he pinned the road deer without killing it, throat punctured but still breathing, waiting for his master to land the finishing blow. Smart dog, he had instinctively understood the kill needed to belong to Xiao Tian Leong. 1 strike, instant space notification, 100 road deer added to the inventory. That single deer's multiplied value already covered the cost of 1 red pill. 2 more hours, 2 more deer. Red King running 8 miles without breaking a breath while most hunting dogs collapsed after. 3. Then Xiao Tian Leong noticed something that changed his assessment of this dog entirely. Red King tracked prey through airborne scent. Not ground trails, not footprints, but particles carried on the wind. Old hunters called this upwind nose, the rarest tracking ability in existence. The thing that made a dog useful in any season, any weather. When autumn leaves buried every ground trail under 6 inches of silence. He had not just acquired a hunting dog, he had acquired a masterpiece. He processed the deer meat, hung organs on a branch for the mountain spirit, and walked home carrying 2 loaded baskets on a pole like a proper hunter. Returning from a good day, at the building site, Li Hongbing's cousin and 7 shirtless men had the foundation stakes in and the lines drawn. The first real step toward a brick house becoming real. Then Xiao Tian Leong appeared on the horizon with 2 baskets of meat and a massive red dog, sitting at his side like a very well-dressed bodyguard. Li Hongbing saw Red King and nearly teleported backwards. What is that? My hunting dog, purebred Liu Red, name's Red King. Red King sat perfectly still with curious gentle eyes, and the contrast between his terrifying physique and his calm demeanor slowly convinced the team leader that this beast was not going to eat anyone. Li Hongbing's eyes drifted to the overloaded baskets. Your pole is about to snap. What's in those? The answer to whether Xiao Tian Leong could afford to finish his house was sitting right there. But all he did was smile. Wang Qingshan came back from the hospital changed in a way that was visible before he even spoke. The revenge fire that had driven him into the forest alone was gone, replaced by something quieter and more complicated: guilt, grief, and a practical problem. He owed hospital money for 2 injured friends, had a paralyzed dog to care for, and his savings after 5 years of not hunting were essentially nothing. Tian Leong, let's team up for the Shang Langbor bounty. No revenge in his eyes this time, just a man who needed income and was asking straight. I need to pay for Stone's care. I need to support Jing Kong and Zhao Dong's families. I can control myself now, please. Xiao Tian Leong thought about what he had seen in the Red Pine Forest. Wang Qingshan fighting a bear hand-to-hand with an axe, buying time, creating an opening. That was not weakness, that was raw combat ability. And the man standing in front of him did not have shaking hands anymore. Killing the bear that had haunted him for 5 years might have actually closed something. Deal, when you're healed, we hunt. Wang Qingshan grinned so wide he tore his chest wound open. Worth it, apparently. The Shang Leng commune bounty was the next destination, 10 boars for a bicycle, 15 for a television ticket on top of everything. Plus, the possibility of applying for a Type 56 semi-automatic rifle for the top hunters. Li Hongbing had warned him to stay away from those hunting gangs, Lu 3 shots, Little Xing and Xian, Black Bear Zhang, men who led teams of elite hunters and were still struggling with the boar crisis. You are one man with a borrowed gun and a teenager, he had said. Grow slowly, stay home. Xiao Tian Leong nodded politely and internally disagreed entirely. He had Red King, the upwind-nosed miracle dog who could track anything in any season. He had 100 times multiplier that meant every kill he landed produced 100 more. He had Wang Qingshan healing up, a frontline fighter who could engage and create openings. And he had the shooting technique that had already left every experienced hunter in the region staring at him like he was performing miracles. The forest at Shang Leng did not know what was coming. The first night he brought 3 full boars to Song Jinzi at a midnight forest meeting. The merchant arrived with henchmen and carts, kept the ammunition until all the meat was verified and loaded because he still half expected to be robbed by his own client. 300 yuan cash, 200 tickets, 100 rounds of ammunition, and the deal came with a bonus. Song Jinzi's puppy contact had delivered. The halfly red half-black wolf hybrid pup that had become Red King was already hunting road deer at Old Baldy Peak, and Xiao Tian inventory was filling with animals faster than he could process them. He started building toward the bicycle in the only honest way available: go to Shanlang. Let Wonking Shan and Red King flush the boars, land every killing blow himself. Collect the bounty one legitimate kill at a time. But first, one more thing to handle. He had heard the village gossip about Lin Yuing's marriage falling through, had heard her parents blaming her for the cancelled arrangement, and had run the math on what happened next for a girl with no name, no support, and no matchmaker willing to touch her case. The Chun father-son duo had been scared off entirely. Yuan Shao had given him the full story. Grinning with barely concealed triumph, the son had tried to sacrifice his father's dignity to save his own. During the confrontation in the marsh, the father had tried to sacrifice his son, and the two of them had gone home, fighting each other so loudly the whole village had probably heard. That family would not be coming near Shungan again. But Lin Yuan's parents had not stopped looking for an arrangement. They had just lost one buyer, and the market for their daughter was still open in their minds. Xiao Tianleong did not know what to do with that yet. He was not stable enough. No permanent house, no fully established income, no ground under his feet that wasn't still being built. What he could do was make sure she kept eating, keep the kitchen open to her, keep Yuan Shao's matchmaking schemes contained before they started actual fires. The night Yuan Shao stumbled home exhausted from horse stance punishment and called Lin Yuan master's wife by accident. The resulting supernova of red faces in that kitchen had sent Xiao Tianleong outside with a gallbladder and a strong need for fresh air. He had processed his feelings by not processing them at all, which had been working fine for 2 lifetimes. By the time he returned from Lu Bingrun's house with beeswax and deer blood for gallbladder processing, the kitchen was clean and dinner was wrapped and she had gone home. He stood in his own courtyard in the dark and counted what he had built in 1 month. A registration, a license, a land permit, a house under construction to sales channels, a magical inventory, an elite hunting dog, a healing hunting partner, a black market dealer who feared him, a lumber camp connection, and an apprentice who called him master with complete sincerity. Also, 100 bear gallbladders, 100 roe deer, 9 remaining boars, 600 pheasants, 13,000 quail eggs, and enough ammunition to last through the winter. He had arrived with nothing in a straw bed in September 1976. He had arrived in a broken timeline with no name on any document, no one who knew him, no right to exist in this decade at all. And what he had built in 30 days was the foundation of something that felt, for the first time in either lifetime, like it actually belonged to him. The work was not finished. It was barely started, but in a village, where 20 cents bought you a full day's labor. Xiao Tianleong had quietly become someone the forest was going to have to reckon with. The Shangleng commune hunt came together the way plans do, when every piece is ready at the same moment. Wonking Shan's chest wound closed, his hands were steady, and the man who had gone alone into a bear's den out of grief came to the youth quarters one morning looking like someone who had put down something heavy. Red King smelled him at the gate, assessed him with unhurried amber eyes, and gave a single tail wag, the dog's version of a cleared background check. Xiao Tianleong watched and thought, if the dog trusts him, the partnership holds. They went to Shangleng as a 2-man team with 1 elite dog, and the hunting gangs already operating there looked at them with the specific kind of skepticism reserved for people who show up to a serious problem looking to calm. Red King changed that within the first hour. While the veteran gangs with their dogs were casting for trails and fallen leaves and finding nothing, Red King was reading the wind and moving. He found the first boar's airborne scent and ran it down before the other teams had finished arguing about direction. Wonking Shan drove it forward with controlled aggression, creating the angle, stepping into danger the way a man does when he has made peace with the fear, rather than surrender to it. Xiao Tianleong fired once. Clean kill. 100 boars added to inventory, quiet as a breath. The bounty officials at the commune station weighed the carcass, counted the bullet wound, and wrote the tally in their ledger. 1 kill credited, 50 jin of grain awarded, 20 bullets replaced. The veteran hunters watched with expressions that had moved past skepticism and were heading somewhere closer to discomfort. 3 more kills across 3 more days, all the same pattern: Red King on the wind, Wonking Shan in the gap, Xiao Tianleong on the trigger. The gang started tracking where they went instead of where the boars were, which said everything about how fast the reputation was building. By the 5th kill, Lu 3 shots himself came over and stood near enough to watch the technique without being obvious about it. The man who had once killed a massive bull boar in 3 rounds with a proper rifle stood watching a converted 16 gauge do the same job and said nothing for a long time. "That is good dog work," he finally said, not quite a compliment, not quite a concession, but something in between that meant he had run out of dismissals. Xiao Tian Leong thanked him and kept moving. 10 kills. The bicycle ticket arrived with the formality of a document that knew it was important. He held it for a moment. The small paper that represented the end of walking everywhere in a decade where his legs had functioned as his only transportation across distances that would have broken most people. Then he pocketed it and put in for 15. The television ticket came with the 15th kill. Same formality, same weight in the hand. 2 pieces of the legendary 3 rounds and a sound. Acquired not by trading or luck, but by showing up every day and landing the shot. The commune officials started talking about the Type 56 application. Wang Qingshan heard the news at dinner that night and sat quietly for a moment before saying, "I think you should apply." "Not we, you." Xiao Tian Leong looked at him. "You're the gunner." The older man said simply, "I am the flesh." "That is how this works." The application went in the next morning. While they waited for the answer, Xiao Tian Leong went back to Shungan to check on the house. Li Hongbing's cousin had the walls up, actual brick walls, standing in the northeast winter air like proof that something impossible had been built from nothing. He stood at the edge of the foundation and looked at what had been empty land a month ago. Red King sat beside him and pressed his enormous head against his leg, warm and solid and real. Yuan Shao appeared from somewhere, took one look at the walls, and said, "Master, it's actually happening." "Yes," Xiao Tian Leong said. "It actually is." Lin Yuan came by in the late afternoon with a basket of food for the construction workers. Steamed buns she had made herself, enough for every man on site. She did not ask permission. She did not announce herself. She just showed up and fed people because she had figured out that was something she could do. And so she did it. Her cheeks had real color now. The kind that comes from eating regularly and sleeping without something heavy pressing on your chest. The workers thanked her, and she smiled. Not the cautious half smile she used with most people, but something fuller, something that reached her eyes. Xiao Tian Leong saw it and looked away before the flutter in his chest could become anything he would have to acknowledge. The Type 56 approval came back positive 2 weeks later. A semi-automatic rifle government issued, assigned to a licensed hunter with a verified record. Xiao Tian Leong held it the way he had held the converted shotgun the first time, with the quiet reverence of someone touching the thing that changes everything. Wang Qingshan saw his face and laughed, a real laugh. The first one Xiao Tian Leong had heard from the man. The sound of it said that something had healed. They went back into the field together with the new rifle and Red King. And the difference was immediate and total. What had required precision timing with a single shotgun became controlled and methodical with a weapon that could fire again without reloading. Red King had never worked harder or looked more satisfied doing it. The multiplier kept running. Every kill Xiao Tian Leong landed filled the inventory deeper. And the inventory translated into meat, and the meat translated into money, and the money translated into a house that was growing real walls against the coming winter. Song Jinzi processed everything he brought without asking questions anymore. He had stopped asking questions about 3 transactions ago, which was probably the most professionally healthy decision the merchant had ever made. The lumber camp sales channel ran smoothly through Wang Yushan, who had fully embraced his role as middleman and was earning more per transaction than he made in a month of cooking. His 3 boys were eating better. Damien was staying in school without worrying about the money. And the neighbor who had once tried to report on them for eating well had gone very quiet. Elder King sent a message through a roundabout chain of contacts, not a letter, just a message. For words, the dog chose right. Xiao Tian Leong carried that for a while. The hardest day came without announcing itself, the way hard days usually do. He came back from a long mountain run to find Lin Yuan's mother sitting outside his courtyard, not waiting for him with food, not there on any errand he recognized. Sitting there the way someone sits when they have come to say something they have rehearsed. She looked at his face for a long time before she spoke. She said they'd found someone new for Lin Yuan, a widower, younger than the last one, with property, willing to overlook the Jinx reputation in exchange for a reduced bride price. She was not asking his permission. She was not asking his advice. She was telling him. Xiao Tian Leong stood in his courtyard with dirt on his boots and blood from the day's hunt still on his jacket, and understood that this was the moment he had been postponing. By telling himself the ground was not stable enough, he said, "Tell your husband the arrangement is cancelled." The woman looked at him with the particular expression of someone who has just heard something They were not expecting and do not know yet whether to believe it. He said it again, clearly, without drama. Tell him I am speaking for the girl. She went home and did not come back that evening. He went inside and sat at his wobbly table. That Yuan Shao had stabilized with a rock on the first day, in a house that was still temporary, with everything he had built around him like walls that were not yet walls. Yuan Shao appeared in the doorway 20 minutes later, read the room in one glance, said absolutely nothing, and went to start the fire for dinner. Good kid. The best kid, actually. Lin Yuan arrived the next morning at the same time she always did, broom in hand, and did not mention her mother's visit. He did not mention it either. She made breakfast, he ate it. Yuan Shao arrived and ate twice as much as both of them combined. And the day moved forward the way days do when something has shifted but nothing has been named yet. The brick house finished 2 weeks before the first real snow came. Li Hongbing organized the final inspection himself, walked through every room with his cousin, tapped the walls, tested the windows, and came out looking like a man who had built something worth being proud of. Xiao Tian Leong paid the last of the construction cost in cash in full. On the day, the roof went on. The construction crew ate that night at his expense, 3 meat dishes, rice, soup, the kind of meal that gets remembered, and Li Hongbing sat at the head of the table, looking at the strange young man who had materialized from a river 2 months ago with nothing. How, he finally asked, just that one word. Xiao Tianling poured him a cup of Zhaoang's special brew and said, I found the right places to look. It was not a complete answer, but it was an honest one. Li Hongbing accepted it, raised his cup, and did not ask again. That night, Xiao Tianling moved into his brick house and sat in his own kitchen for the first time. Real walls, real roof, real floor, not straw, not mud, not patches holding patches together. Red King sprawled across the entrance like a furry gate guardian, tail thumping the floor once when his master looked at him. He pulled out every yuan from his inventory and counted it on the kitchen table. The number that came back was large enough that he sat with it for a moment before writing it down. Then he thought about what the man waking up in the straw bed on September 22nd would have said if someone told him where he would be in 60 days. He probably would not have believed it. He probably would have been wrong. Outside, the village was settling into the particular quiet of a northeast evening when the cold is coming, but has not fully arrived. When smoke rises straight from chimneys and the last light turns everything briefly gold. Yuan Shao had gone home for once without being chased. Wang Qingshan was at his place with his paralyzed dog and his new stillness. And somewhere in the village Lin Yuan was in a house that still did not treat her the way she deserved to be treated. That was the one thing the money had not fixed yet, and Xiao Tianling knew it. He also knew that in 1976, a man who owned a brick house, held a government hunting license, and had a Type 56 semi-automatic rifle assigned to his name had standing in a way that a river ghost with fake amnesia did not. The ground was stable now. He could afford to look at what he had been postponing. He put the money away, put out the lamp, and listened to the northeast night settle around his brick walls. He had arrived in the century with nothing. No papers, no plan, number right to exist here at all, and had built a life out of a dead rabbit, a borrowed slingshot, and a cheat code the universe apparently felt guilty enough to hand him. He was not done building. The reforms were still years away. The forest still held more than he had taken, and every person who had helped him, without being asked, was still owed something he intended to pay. But for the first time since waking up on that straw bed with sunlight attacking his eyes, through a hole in the roof, Xiao Tianling felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be.